think we're back. We're back here with more Live from the Heartland. I'm looking up on my little phone here to check out the words I need to know. Okay, let's go. Here we go. More Live from the Heartland here on the left end of the dial. I'm Michael James. I'm hosting this morning's segment, and I have a return guest, Xan Aranda, and good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
It's a pleasure. Last time you were here, which I think you had it pinpointed to the very day, was about a year and a half ago.
Yep.
And we talked about your film, which is about the musician Andrew Bird when he was laid up with a fever for a year.
Yeah.
And it was pretty wonderful. Thank you for the coffee, Hannah. And I got a message from Kartemquin Films, who has been my favorite film production company for many years, that they were going to have an event tomorrow showing little clips of 4 films.
That's right, 4
And one
films.
of them is your new film. So tell us about the event, even though I think it's sold out.
It's sold out, but people should try and come down because inevitably people don't show up, and we always pack people into the seats at the last minute. But yeah, we do this every year, and it does sell out every year. You know, Kartemquin's a 46, almost 47-year-old institution, and we always have works in progress. So this is a spring showcase, 4 films in progress. We're going to show 10 minutes, rough assemblies. The pieces are in varying levels of edit, so mine's like a fresh edit I did a week ago. Other pieces have been cut longer over the past year. But we like to give each film a half-hour segment, and everybody discusses it and give feedback on what's working and what's not working.
Well, let's tell people right off that you invited them, even though it's sold out, that some people should come down and check it out because they may get in.
Yeah.
Tell us where it is, at the Siskel Film Center, but the details.
It's at the Gene Siskel Film Center. I believe it's 164 North State Street, across the street from the beautiful Chicago Theater. And it'll be 5 o'clock on Sunday at Siskel.
This Sunday.
One time only. You can't watch them in advance. Nothing's available on online. This is an exclusive
I know. I was
peek.
trying to go see little clips of these films like I did of our previous guest, George Desort, and his movie about 50 lakes on one island in Lake Superior. But I got a little bit of information. So let's go through them in order. We'll save yours for last.
Sure.
So the first one I think is called Cooked.
Cooked, yes. It was inspired by a book that was written about the Chicago heat wave of when was that, 1995?
All I know is we were down in, we had a concession in down near the zoo on the pond, and all our food got wiped out. We didn't get electricity for a week. And I did, there was a customer of mine who later ran for office who basically blew the whistle on Mayor Daley at that time, how many people died and the ineptness of the city around handling it.
Yeah, so Judith Helfand, who's the director of the film, who's New York-based, one thing I really love she does with her film is that she has a map of all the deaths in Chicago during the heat wave. There's an amazing amount of death. But when you flip that map over, it's a map of it's a poverty map of Chicago, and it's the same map. Poor people suffered the most. Poor and elderly people suffered the most during that. So she asked the question, can poverty be declared a disaster, so that we are actually, disaster preparedness means eradicating poverty. It's a really great film.
So I think in the teaser information it gave, it said that you know, there's a lot of attention being paid in this country to the potential disaster, and we just had a situation in Boston with that bombing. But if you could turn that apparatus into dealing with poverty, would be quite a great move. I like the idea. I went, boom, yeah.
She asked that question in the film. You know, the disaster preparedness is like a luxury, right? To be prepared for a one-time life-changing event, you know, that you never know when it's going to happen. What about for people who aren't prepared for the week, who don't know if they're going to make it through the week, they don't have food, things like that. So when a major disaster hits, those are the first people wiped out. And she travels to a disaster preparedness conference in Kentucky. She talks to a lot of different people who are working to develop, you know, food issues and things like that. So it's a great film. I'm really excited about it.
Does she talk to the medical people who were around at that time here in Chicago? She does.
Yeah.
Well, this would be a real film because this was it was a pretty serious scandal, I think, in a lot of ways that didn't get covered. People died off and
incredible
didn't get
interviews
a lot of
with cops and EMTs and community organizers, and just putting together what she calls a disaster detective story.
So that's called Cooked. What's our next film?
The next one's called The Home Stretch by 2 directors who are looking at...
Who are these directors? Because I noticed that in the first one, in 2 of the films, the directors, the people who are really making the films are named, but in 2 of them, they're not.
Which one? So
Well, you're named, and the cooked film is named, but I don't think in the little promo on the other two it names the directors.
Andemare and Kirsten Gillibrand. And they are, I believe they're Brooklyn-based. We've just recently met. I've been away a lot with my other film. But they're looking at youth homelessness mostly in high school. And it's a really beautiful film where they, it's one thing to tell a story about other people, but to do your best to enable a community to tell their own story is what they're doing here. Just looking at the issues, these are, high schoolers who are homeless, who are already dealing with enough to get through high school and prepare for college.
It just jerked my heart to read it, just that you have these, I don't know how many thousands of kids in the Chicago public school system, not charter schools, who are maybe a few, but who are basically homeless. And they are in the home stretch. They're trying to finish their high school degree.
They are, and they're working really hard.
Thought about, there's so many people out there who have it a lot harder than many others. And, we like to think we're a nation, a city, a people with compassion, but clearly we have a long way to go.
Sure, yeah.
All right, so that's one of the films. Let's go to the next one, which I think is American Arab.
American Arab, Usama al-Shaibi, who lived here for a long time and made a lot of experimental films and fiction films. It's a beautiful film, really looking at the Arab-American identity post 9/11. He was born in Baghdad, I believe, and then raised in Iowa. And then after 9/11, things got really hard for him. So, but he breaks it out of he's kind of your host in the film, but he looks at other families and groups who have also gone through things regarding that identity, people who consider themselves American as well. So.
And that's mostly, is it shot in Chicago or around the whole country?
Mostly in Chicago, yeah, and a little bit in Iowa. And he's based in Boulder, Colorado now. He's getting his master's, but he'll be here. All of us will be here for the event at the Siskel Center tomorrow at 5.
We're talking with Xan Aranda, and she is a filmmaker who did a film on Andrew Bird, Fever Year, which was, you could probably find it on Heartland, youtube.com/Heartland Media. That interview about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And you have a new film, which you did hint at making way back, called The Mormon Movie as a working title.
Right.
Let's hear about that.
Yeah, not my phone, his phone ringing. Just kidding.
It's not the engineer on that thing.
It's not the engineer.
Else. I'm turning it off.
My film was inspired by 2 films my mother starred in when she was a student at Brigham Young University in the 1960s. And I grew up knowing about one of the films, but I only knew about the second one recently. And when I put them together, I realized that there were subject matter, themes, parts in Mormon history, and even in the history of our family that were all these kind of undeniable threads. So the film looks at what it's like to remove yourself from a community, forms of exile. It's also about Latino identity, but it's also kind of, for me, like an expedition to a long-lost world that I left almost 17 years ago.
I remember talking to you about that. And so you had left the Mormon church. And I, of course, asked you about this book I had read called The Mountain Meadow Massacre.
Oh, the Under the Banner of Heaven, yeah.
I was looking at, negative things I'd heard about the Mormon church.
Sure.
But you just mentioned a Latino identity. So you have a Latino background?
Yes, my father is Mexican and my mother is half Mexican.
And you, so how did they become Mormons in the first place?
So in the late 1800s, the Mormons colonized in northern Mexico. And my father grew up in one of those colonies in the 40s.
Did they know George Romney? Mitt Romney.
My father grew up with Meredith Romney, yeah. So in many ways, my film, I look at the legends of the church and the legends my mother told us to inspire us to be hard workers and good Mormons, and the legends my father told us about Mexico to inspire us to have Mormon and Mexican pride. But I never went to Mexico with him, so we're doing that with the film. And through all those legends, looking at how kind of intended doctrine or intended lessons land in a life, and then how time bears down on all of that.
From the little bit I got, it sounded like your mom was kind of a star. I'm throwing that in the Mormon community. She was actually the actress who appeared in a number of Mormon educational films.
Right. You know, she went to BYU in the 60s as a dancer, but she describes BYU as what turned into a creative mecca for her. She just studied Stanislavski and participated in everything, danced and acted a lot. So there's a motion picture studio founded by the church in the 50s. So by the time she got there in the 60s, was really a formidable filmmaking place. I treat that motion picture studio these days, I kind of regard it as a bit of a holy site, you know, where my mom learned to be an actress and made these kind of timeless and not so timeless films. But started in 2 of them and then worked on a couple of other ones.
Now, in your film that you're making, how far along are you on this film?
We have been shooting...
Got at least a half hour for this event you're having tomorrow.
Yeah, I just cut together 10 minutes. We've been shooting the last couple months and the last couple years. You know, I took a break to make Fever Year with Andrew, and then once I finished that, I did a festival run and then got back to this one, and I've been fundraising for this one. So I have another year of production, but I'll start editing this winter, hoping for a late 2014 release.
Xan Aranda, what was it like when you decided, you say, I think 17 years ago, to leave the Mormon church, when you had parents who were really probably important figures in the church?
Well, beyond the importance, you know, for me, the most important thing was that I was at that point, you know, I am 5th generation. We go back to the founding of the church. So it wasn't something I took lightly. One thing I like about the demo that we released last fall, which is available online, you can go to mormonmovie.org and watch the existing 10-minute piece that I put together last summer. I heard from a lot of people who were formerly of communities who said, you know, I thought I was pretty resolved about leaving my Catholic community or my evangelical community or my Mennonite community, but realizing that the approach I'm taking with my film is it's not a whistleblower film, it's not an indictment movie, it's a long-lost world movie. And a lot of them realize that what's within that is the realization that it's a part of you. So you try so hard to get something away from you or step away from it. But to embrace it as a part of you is a whole other step, I think, in life, which is what I've done with the process. So,
it just popped into my head. There was a woman, I think, named Sonia Johnson. Wasn't she a Mormon who left and she was running for president at one time? Does
wow,
that name just ringing a bell?
You know, for the 17 years I've been gone, I checked out completely. I would never watch anything, read anything.
Well, it could have been further back.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong on the name, but I know there was an activist who raised a lot of questions.
Sure.
Just as a promising, I mean, you've been a successful filmmaker already with your first film.
Thank you.
What kind of plans do you have for the future in your filmmaking?
Very active plans, very much in the works. I have a fiction film, an independent fiction film, feature length, specific to Chicago that I'm going to make after this one. So I'm developing that now. And as soon as this one's at a cruising altitude, then I'll start working with actors and getting that in order. A couple more documentaries and a lot more fiction. So and I just shot a fiction piece for a client too. So
this is good. I'm looking forward to seeing all these films.
I'll come back every year and a half.
Where did you study your film?
I studied in San Francisco at a place that's no longer there called the Film Arts Foundation, which has been absorbed into the San Francisco Film Society.
And how did you get hooked up with Kartemquin?
Kartemquin, you know, I grew up near Chicago and then lived in California 10 years. I guess I moved back because I swore I'd never live here again.
It's hard to leave this place.
It is.
Not so hard in the winter.
I have family here and family in California and in Utah, so I'm everywhere all the time. But no, in late '06, I had heard about a film that needed a producer called Milking the Rhino, and so in 2007, I was hired to become a producer of that film, made by David Simpson, who's a great filmmaker and a great editor. And David's been affiliated with Kartemquin for about 20 years, 25 years now, I guess. So I came on to do that as an independent contractor and then slowly handled the broadcast of that film, the broadcast of another film, and then started developing my film. And just because I'm an associate of Kartemquin doesn't mean I can just bring an idea in and make it there. As I developed the film, we really found that it was the larger universal themes that my film is exploring is in line with, you know, Kartemquin's more social justice, social inquiry kind of mission.
Well, one more time, give us where this
sure.
these clips of these 4 films will be shown. Give us the names, the address, and cheer people on to come down even though it's sold out.
The Kartemquin Films Spring Showcase, Sunday, May 19th, 5 p.m., Gene Siskel Film Center, 164 North State Street. 4 films, Cooked, The Homestretch, American Arab, Mormon Movie. All of us will be there. We each have our own moderator. Mine is Howard Reich from the Tribune, who I call my fraternal twin. We worked on his film Prisoner of Her Past together. Natalie Moore from BEZ, Alex Kotlowitz, and then I believe, I'm so sorry, I can't remember who else is joining Usama for his, but we'll all be there. And it's a great way to give feedback. It is sold out. It sold out yesterday. It sells out every year, but I've seen people line up and get seats. Inevitably, they pack each little final seat at last minute, so.
Well, Xan, we're really glad you came on the show today.
Thank you
it's
for having me back.
It's always a pleasure. And let's have a big round of applause and go see those movies. And before you know it, they'll all be out. We're taking a musical break. Lisa's downtown. We'll be right back with more Live from the Heartland. We're going to start talking about Veterans for Peace.